course, the one thing that I forgot to say when we were at Cinecittà this morning, we were talking about movies, and I forgot to say that what really bad luck I've had in those works of mine that have been adapted. We begin with a disaster, A Visit to a Small Planet, which was so beautifully played in high comedy by your own Gunter Luders in Berlin. What does the movies do with it? They make it into a low comedy with Jerry Lewis. Then I make The Left-Handed Gun, which some people like with Paul Newman, but I don't. That was an adaptation from a play of mine. Followed by The Best Man, which I did myself. I liked that one. Followed by Myra Breckenridge, which was in many ways considered the worst film ever made, for which I often get credit, though I had nothing to do with it. Followed by the current disaster that they're making out of a film idea of mine called Caligula. And I suddenly think, you know, I've really been badly served by the movies all these years. And then I think, well, you know, in a way, there is a God. Tennessee Williams hated what I did with Suddenly Last Summer when I adapted him. So I suppose that there is in this world some kind of dreadful justice. What I have done unto others, others have done unto me. Since the 17th century, civilization as we understand it has been a kinetic operation between the eye and the text, what is written. And that is how we pass on information, that's how we pass on civilization to each other, even to you. With the rise of television, what they laughingly call skills in reading have considerably declined in the Western world. The result is, in the United States, I'm sure this is true in Germany, that 80% of the people get their news from television. They don't read newspapers, they don't read magazines, or if they do, they just look at them in the same rather dull way that they look at the TV set. Now, what does this mean? Well, they conducted a poll in the United States at 9 o'clock in the evening. They said, did you watch the 6 o'clock news? Everybody said, yes, we watched the 6 o'clock news. All right, they said, what struck you the most 3 hours ago on the 6 o'clock news? 80% could not remember anything that they had seen 3 hours previously. And all you're going to remember is this dog, not me. American writers generally are not, to use the English word, clubbable. They don't get on with each other very well, and I think that the poison began with Ernest Hemingway, who was not only a bad writer, but a very bad man. And he was constantly trying to destroy other writers, like Scott Fitzgerald. He did everything possible to help him have his disagreeable ending. Of my own generation, we were the so-called war novelists, those of us who came out of the Second World War. And Mailer was something of a friend of mine, but ultimately you cannot be a friend of Mailer because he's constantly, he wrote a book called Advertisements for Myself. Anybody writes advertisements for myself, it ends up that you will have to be an advertisement for him. His career was doing badly, has been doing badly for about 20 years, and suddenly at a party in New York about 2 years ago, Mailer came up to me, threw a drink in my face, and he's a little fat man. He looks exactly like Colette now, with this sort of hair. He looks like a fat little old lady. And suddenly this little old lady, I looked down at this little old lady, and suddenly this tiny fist comes up like this and goes across my face. And so I grab him like this, and I sort of throw Mailer across the room. And Mailer falls on top of a friend of mine who not only has a pacemaker in the heart, but a toupee. And he took this as an extremely hostile act that I was throwing Norman Mailers at him at a party for no reason at all. He said, nobody else has ever thrown a Norman Mailer at me. You're throwing Norman Mailers. Of my other exact contemporaries, there's Truman Capote, whom I am at this very moment We do not date anything here, but at this very moment I am suing him for $1 million for libel. And Capote is and I think we can say this quite fairly, a pathological liar. He literally, if it's Monday, you say, what day of the week is it? It's Wednesday. He absolutely cannot tell the truth about anything, which would be all right. I mean, you know, I am tolerant of other people's, I too have my faults. But Capote, whom I last saw 11 years ago, and before that saw only 10 years before, so in 20 years I've seen this man twice. Every time anybody writes a piece about Gore Vidal, the first person they go to is Truman Capote, because he's supposed to know everyone famous on earth. And you say, oh, Gore Vidal is such an awful person, you know, and then you get this terrible interview. And I finally got sick of it. So I said, all right, enough is enough. I'm going to sue you for $1 million, and I'm going to win. And that is where we stand with him. Saul Bellow is an old friend, and I like his cranky Puritan morality, which is not mine, but I'm equally Puritan, but he's a Jewish Puritan, and I'm a Gentile Puritan. And we are so far apart that often we meet.